Right, let's see where we are. Should be there. Okay, let's see if that works. Right, I'm going to send that link to you now. Let's see if you can get that. Chat should be with you now.
Okay. Yep, got it.
Right, and I'm just going to get the link out to myself. So,
Pause the YouTube link and I'll open up the chat. Oh yeah, there's no chat yet.
yeah, so you'll see someone coming in now. Yeah, hi folks who are just joining us. Bear with us if you're a regular here. You know it takes a couple of minutes for me to get out to social media, and then we'll get on with this brilliant live Q&A we've got planned for you guys. So can you see there's a couple of hellos there, Simon, in the comments?
Oh, hi guys. In fact, Ozzy. Hello, Ozzy.
Right. So that's with me now. So yeah, why do this, Simon? What have you been up to since our first meeting at Newark? What have you been up to?
Yeah, doing a bit of flying up in Aberdeen. So I only seem to fly nice weather days, so it's always absolutely beautiful whenever I get up there. And a bit of working from home, so we've got lots of boring meetings and things at the moment. So lots of
Not as good as flying.
I know. It's not as much fun when it's bad weather though.
Yeah. But the two-part interview is doing really well. We had some great comments from you guys, so thanks for watching. And yeah, it was a really good one.
Oh, pleasure, thank you. Yeah, it's always a bit embarrassing when you watch yourself on the telly and you think, oh my God, I would never say anything like that. But everyone was really supportive, so thank you. And hi guys, hi Tree, how you doing? Hi Sam and Chihuahua Entertainment and John as well. Hi guys.
Right, so I'm going to get this out now, but just to do a quick introduction, so while you guys can get your questions coming in, we're obviously here with Simon Kovach, and he is a former RAF Puma and Merlin pilot, and now you're on the S92, is that correct?
Yeah, there's one. It's very cheesy. I know. I've got my models behind me. Yeah, there's like a white one behind me. So yeah, I've been flying the S92 for about 8 years now. Mainly offshore. So oil rigs, boats that go up and down, semi-submersibles, jack-ups. So yeah, it's another life after the Air Force.
So yeah, guys, get your questions coming in, but yeah, just tell us, if you haven't watched the interview, can you just tell the people who are joining us a bit about your RAF career?
Yeah, sure. So I joined up in February '96, and graduated in the October. Went out to Hold, which is the kind of period in between your flying courses in Cyprus, which was just fantastic. So it was a Wessex squadron, as I said on the interview with Mike. Hi, Hakan, as well. I was taking winching pretty much every time. The guys went flying. It was single pilot, so you could sit in the left and. Had a few little incidents there when I was winched off boats, etc. So it's really great fun. And then from there, flying training back in the UK, flying the Firefly. For anyone who saw the Guy Martin program where he was flying the two-seat Hurricane, the yellow Firefly he did the air combat with. I think that was the first one I did my solo in as well, so that was quite nice to see. And then I was stream director helicopters and went to fly, got my wings on the Griffin at RAF Shawbury in '99, and then 3 years in Northern Ireland flying the Puma. From there, I went to the Merlin, which was a new sort of helicopter at the time. Hi, Emily does makeup as well. Big shout out to you. And I was on the second course to fly the Merlin. Got top 5 famous people you've ever met. Probably Prince William, Prince Charles, possibly Mike as well. Mike from Aircrew Interview, if you know him.
No need to say that. That's definitely not true.
Who else? Amanda Holden. I've held Amanda Holden, from X Factor, and it's not stalking or anything. It was part of a publicity thing we did where she was involved with the Born Free Foundation. We helped rehome these tigers. We flew a helicopter down to somewhere in Kent, Gurkha barracks, and then went off and helped them move the actual tigers. And she was there filming a documentary. And at the end of it, we did a big photo shoot, and I got to hold Amanda Holden in my arms. So it's my claim to fame, and obviously Caprice as well, who I mentioned in my cheesy video that I did. So that's probably my top 5. famous people. Yeah, Emily does makeup is impressed with the Amanda Holden thing. I would say about Amanda Holden, she was absolutely fantastic. She told us we all shared a coach on the way back from this PR thing where we were looking at the tigers, and she told the dirtiest joke that I've ever been told in my entire life. And to be honest, we all blushed. So she's a great girl. And hi, John. You said, did you hear about Hilo that took a lightning strike to the tail and near Aberdeen ditch safely? Yes, and I know the guy who flew it. I think it's in the airplane air crash investigations, which it's on Discovery Channel. So it was a chap, Lionel, I think. I won't give his surname, but yeah, he got I think it was a stuck tail rotor and ditched. Interesting fact about him: a year to the day after that, he bailed out of a glider. So I think a year after that, he didn't want to fly. Hi, Hakan. So he said, what are the main differences between Army, Air Force, and Navy helicopter pilots? Um, yeah, it's. Yeah, I'm not going to throw any banter out because we all like to, Army, Navy, Air Force. We like to throw banter at each other. But all the way through my elementary flying training was tri-service. Pretty much all the way through Shawbury, my helicopter flying was tri-service. The Navy and Army went off their separate ways and they did a slightly different course. And then on the front line, I think something called Joint Helicopter One came in while I was flying helicopters, and they sort of made, you put the rules all together. So it was actually very similar, really. But yeah, the Navy obviously specialised in more overwater roles, and the Army they did a lot more surveillance and obviously attack missions, and we sort of did the trooping really. So yeah, that was really the main difference. The RAF side as well, we tended to do a lot more training with flying with a crewman. So high Soviet soldier. So the crewmen and the engineers, the support staff, they don't always get enough recognition. And my own grandfather was an RAF engineer in the war, and I know how hard he worked. And without the engineers and the crewmen, you don't go flying. I fly now without crewmen, and it still amazes me. We fly to these tiny boats and oar-rigs, and they're all moving around. I mean, it's amazing when you land on a huge oar-rig and it's actually moving around up and down. So yeah, we do it without a crewman. There's a big yellow line on the heli deck, and it's called your bum line. You basically put it underneath your bum, and it makes sure that your helicopter's clear of all the obstacles. But I tell you what, it's a lot nicer when you got a fantastic chap or chap S in the back who's actually looking out and can see what's going on. So yeah, Trident says, "Hey Army, sleep under the stars. Navy navigate by the stars, and Air Force rate their accommodation by stars." Yeah. Well, they say don't dig in, check in, as the Air Force says as well. So yeah, it's, yeah, that's the Air Force does have it a little bit easier than the other services. You have to say, I mean, the Navy when they go away, they go on carriers and boats and things like this. We tend to stay in hardened accommodation. So, hi, Soviet soldier, do you recommend any simulation games or pilot games for trainee pilot? Yeah, there's some really good ones. And when before I joined the Air Force, that's exactly what I did. I downloaded a copy, or not downloaded in those days. It shows how old I am. I bought a copy of Microsoft Flight Sim 95, and I learned to fly circuits on that. And I mean, it did help actually. There's some good ones called DCS as well, and IL2 Stone. I think they're quite good fun. I don't play them because I can't afford a good computer because I spend all my time and money chopping wood. I've got other sad hobbies. So yeah, I'd say DCS is really good. There's a wonderful chap called Tim Davies who has got a YouTube channel, I think, called Fast Jet Performance, and he's got his own server, and he's an actual fast jet guy, and he teaches you how to fly as well. So I'd recommend him if you want to get into it. And Cameron, hi Cameron, you said about the RAF talking of replacing the Puma. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's real surprise. The Puma one was, I mean, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was one of the longest serving helicopters in the military. It came into the RAF in, I think it was 1972, something like that. And basically, Puma Mark One was in for getting on 50 years, as you saw the one in the interview. Yeah, it looked pretty ancient because it was, but it worked. So yeah, the Puma 2 that came in 2013, 14, that's absolutely brilliant aircraft. Fortunately, with a lot of these things in the military, they only get funding for so long, and with it being an older platform, it costs more. So yeah, I think the 169 might be a good aircraft, but I'm a bit of a luddite with things like that. I'd say go American, go Black Hawks. They're proven, they're solid, reliable. Great aircraft. That's what I'd buy. Emily's makeup. What's your opinion on the Boeing 747? It's lovely, but they've retired it. I've flown in one. It takes ages to get out of the runway. um, Hi, John. Again, my friend Tiger also flew F5 Tigers, guys, to transport rescue. Oh, okay, in C-130s, if not Hilo. Started as a joke on a call sign, but took it seriously. Yeah, I know that's awesome. Yeah, F5's a nice aircraft. Oh, Cameron, you've played DCS and recently passed CBAT. Wow, congratulations. That is awesome. I don't know if they still do it, but and I never did it, but certainly there were lots of great leadings to flying training you could do when I was younger. So things like the air cadets. I was an air cadet, like just about some crazy, like 70 or 80% of pilots. Um, University air squadrons. I did used to fly the Grob tutors for Bristol, sorry, not Bristol, Birmingham University Air Squadron at RAF Cosford, which was great, and that was air cadets would fly there, and University Air Squadron cadets could. And for anyone who's not in the UK, the UAS is, you're at university doing a course, and you can basically just go through essentially an RAF flying course with no commitment to join the military at the end. So it's a great opportunity if you want to do it. Right, work emails. Emily's makeup loves Ryan. Okay. HMS Daring One. What was the hardest element of your flying training, and how did you overcome this? Oh, that's a great question. Um, yeah, that's so tough. I mean, I think I mentioned in the video that I found the hardest thing I found was hovering over the water when we did the search and rescue training, because I absolutely hated just sitting there. We used to sit, I think it was 50 foot over the sea winching, and it just felt so vulnerable to me. So I really didn't enjoy that. And it was the only flight I failed in flying training. I mean, people fail flights, fail courses, fail check rides all the time. And, years later, I was instructor myself, and, it does happen, and it's for your own benefit. So I failed drums too, I think it was, and I resat it, failed it again. And then I don't know how. I think I just concentrated on what the instructor was telling me, and got down to it and passed it, and here I am. So yeah, there's lots of hurdles in flying training. Everyone faces their own challenges. It's tough, but it's fair, and it's fun as well. Hi Eric, which LE is the best replacement for the US Army Black Hawk? This is so embarrassing. I don't keep in touch with any sort of current, military helicopters anymore. It's so I genuinely have got no idea. But I tell you what, you couldn't go a lot worse than keeping the Black Hawks. They're brilliant aircraft. To tell the truth, we should have bought them a long time ago. The Westlands, the UK helicopter manufacturer, there, um, sort of developed them a few years ago, and it got overturned. I think possibly for the Merlin. So that it's a great aircraft. Another question. Hi, John. Ever done collective to drop fast to avoid another helo? Um, not really. There's a friend of mine, Kaz Page, who's been on the channel. We worked together at a trials unit, and she's written a book, True Colours, which is really good. And she talks in that about how they were flying at low level, and I think it was a Robinson just appeared out of the clearing, or perhaps some mist towards them, and they just missed it and had to, dump the collective and climb to avoid it. And funny old thing, years later, I was flying offshore and I met the pilot of that Robinson. So, it was a small world. He's a really good friend of mine. He gave me the other side of the story. But touch wood so far, and touch wood, I've not really had anything like that. Occasionally, formations, you'd have to kind of pull away. Helicopter formations quite hard work, especially. Sorry, I'm just in somebody's username is I love Simon Kovach.
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you quickly, Simon. There, your video has been froze for the last minute. Is it anything on your side? Because it doesn't look. Yeah, it's all froze.
No, it's fine on my side if the mic's working.
No, it's fine. It might pop on again, but yeah, it's just like froze for about a minute. But no worries, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. Right, I'll just pause that. Sorry, I'll just go back to the chat. So, do you think with the increasing drive towards autonomous cars that could happen in aviation in a lifetime? Yeah, yes and no. And there's potential for people, taking over aircraft and remotely taking over aircraft, which means that they're probably always going to have to be human inside. I don't think anybody's going to want to take over my little Toyota driving to Aberdeen and back. So, but some nasty people might want to take over an airliner someday. Yeah, I love the fan page. That's fantastic. Hi, Alan Davies. I do know an Alan Davies. It might be you. We might have flown together. You seem like a really cool guy. Yeah, you couldn't be more wrong, but thank you. Hi, Bill. Do you think Coast Guard replacing RN and RF for SE rescue was the best and most efficient thing? Yeah, it's a good question, and there's pluses and minuses for both. It's probably best because I'm involved in it with my day job that I shouldn't really comment on it, but from my perspective that I see, I see it works really, really, really well. And actually, that model of civilianized Coast Guard, it's kind of taking place in lots of other countries like Holland and um, Ireland and lots of other European countries. So they wouldn't do it if it didn't work. I know there's lots of people in the military who weren't very happy with it. I get that. It's so pluses and minuses, but from my perspective, it looks like it works. Yeah, John, friends don't let friends fly Robinson helos. Yeah, yeah, that's a fair point. The Robinson R22 is a wonderful helicopter. I've never flown it, and I've got lots of friends who have, and they absolutely fantastic, adore it. But if the engine fails, because the rotors are so light, you've got something like this, just ridiculous, like a second or something. And don't quote me on this, but to lower the lever before you basically die, essentially. So you've got not much time to recognise you've got an engine failure. Hi, Alan. What's your favourite airline to fly in? Asking for a friend. um, no idea. However, I've probably missed the joke there, but I got to fly Etihad business class about 2 years ago, and that was amazing. So fantastic. Um, Hi, Ozzy. How long have you been doing it for? Started flying in 1997. Though my first flight was with eight air experience flight at RF Shawbury in 1987. So I was a 14-year-old air cadet. Uh, and Mike says, how much banter was there with Chinook crew? Yes, lots. We used to joke because obviously in the military, you'd always joke about the world revolving around Harrier pilots, but in the helicopter world, we'd joke about the world revolving around Chinook pilots. So anyway, we love them all dearly. Time for confession, but when I went through flying training and got to the end of Shawbury, I put Chinooks as my number one choice and Puma as number two. I've never told anybody that before, but I got Puma and I loved it. So anyway, there you go. Take the mick as much as you want. Amanda Holden, woo, logbook story, woo, yeah, jolly good, excellent. Cameron, how has the offshore helicopter industry been affected by COVID? Well, it's funny. I mean, all my friends who fly for the airlines, just to a man, lost their job or they were furloughed. Ironically, I was contacted last week. A student of mine who he um, he actually left. He sort of joined a helicopter squadron, then he left, and he's flying for Ryanair now. And he messaged me the other day. It said lying. He loved the video. He was lying, of course, I assume. But he's the only person I know, literally, who's still flying in the airline world now, in the helicopter world. Yeah, I think I put in my video that I lost my job last year, so I was chief pilot running two bases in the Shetlands for my company, and we lost a major contract, and they closed the base. It was a devastating personal experience, but I got another job, but it's been affected, I would say, by COVID. What's happened is the numbers have dropped down, but the oil rigs are still producing oil. They've not, you can't just shut the door and turn the locks and the lights off. So the flights are actually starting to pick up again now. So I'm cautiously optimistic anyway. What was your Hi Alan? What was your personal favourite time in the Air Force? Oh, so cheesy, but it was all brilliant. I absolutely loved it, and it sounds a really weird thing to say, but I was very happy when I left as well. A friend of mine, Dave, who's a test pilot for Eurocopter, and his bit of advice to me was leave the Air Force when you're still having a brilliant time. He said, don't wait till you get stuck in a desk or ground job, or you're doing a job you don't like. Leave when you're still having a good time, and that's exactly what I did. I took his advice to the word, and yeah, I loved it. So yeah, I've got no personal favourite. I mean, I think maybe if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say my first tour. I think for most pilots, your first tour on a frontline squadron is just something really special. When you You get given the keys to your own helicopter and a crew, and you go away with engineers for a few days. It's just brilliant, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, Foo will love maybe. Yeah, Foo's a friend of mine as well. Who cares? Have you been in, and what do you think of the Osprey? Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I've not been in it. I would love to fly it. There's lots of talk of the civilian variant of it, not made by the same company, but by Augusta Westland, the 169. I think sorry, not 169. I can't remember the model number, but there's a small tilt rotor that they're looking at for the offshore world. I mean, I would love to fly. It's fast, it's high, it gives you loads of opportunities. You can get much further out into the Atlantic. So yeah, I think Osprey's amazing. Unless you want to use the helipad at Addenbrooke's, which is a bit unfortunate, but these things happen. Hi Eric, how do heli pilots conduct safe brownout ops? Also, have you ever flown the yellow? I've never flown the yellow. No, I was lucky enough to in between finishing fixed wing training and going to fly helicopters. I held at Oscombe Down, the rotary wing test squadron, and they had a huge amount of helicopters, and it was brilliant. They flew single pilot, so again, I got to fly in everything, Army, Navy, Air Force that we had at the time, and I absolutely loved it. To answer your question about the brownout ops, there's procedures for landing and taking off. Essentially, you do what's called a zero speed landing. So you just very gently bring the speed back as you come into land. You have a crewman who's looking out, and he gives you a talk down on where the dust cloud is, and he'll say it's approaching the tail, it's at the door. What normally happens as you come into land is the dust cloud kind of blows through just as you come in towards the sort of the low hover. You still got a bit of forward airspeed on, and then basically you grin and bear it. You almost freeze on the controls. In theory, it's the same with snow landings. If you lose all your references, you're meant to go around, so you pull in the power and take off again. But normally, it's for a microsecond or a second max, and then you get the references back again. Flying night dust landings in Iraq was probably about the hardest flying I think I've ever done on night vision goggles, and it was horrific. Um, a bit like Eskimos have got all sorts of different types of, you got a million words for snow. That the sand is just gazillion types of sand, and it racked some of the places we would go and practice landings. The dust was like talcum powder, and I remember one night we were doing night dust landings just practice, and we came into land and the dust cloud bloomed up and it was so thick we couldn't safely land, so we went around and there was no wind at all, and the dust cloud sat there. We orbited for about 10 minutes because it was the only place we could practice, and you sat there and we had to go home in the end. So Oliver Simon Kovach, do you have a family? If so, which is your favourite? For any parent, you would know that your children they're all equally amazing. Alan, what's the difference between naval and RAF helicopters? Always wanted to know. Well, you know, uh, often the naval ones will have things. They'll be what's called navalized. So they'll have things like folding tail booms, folding rotor heads. So the Merlin had that capability, and they're also got extra, waterproofing. That's generally sort of the key differences. You might have, a few bits less of equipment on the aircraft, but the Merlin I flew in the RF, the Merlin Mark III, they went to the Jungley Force. I think they're called Mark IVs now, but essentially it's the same aircraft. Oh yeah, John, thank you. AW609. Yeah, that's exactly the one I was thinking of. It is absolutely awesome. Alan, what is the best thing about your new job? Well, the new job I've got, as I said, I'm kind of the geeky safety guy. I've got the clipboard, the hard hat, and the fluorescent jacket, and but the best thing about it, before I was working 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and I missed my amazing family for half the time. Whereas now a lot of the time I can work from home. We've got a field. I'm just looking at it now that I could put a helicopter in, but the S92 we're sort of not allowed to do that. Essentially, it's a 747 with a big whirly blade on the top. So our procedures mean that we, particularly at the moment, our company, we don't practice helipad departures and takeoffs for this helicopter I fly. But yeah, I work from home a lot of the time. Then I go up and do some flying, and show my face in the office, and variety of spice of life. And what I probably enjoy the most now is doing investigations. So things happen. There might be a report about something that's happened. Did I go and speak to the crews and look into the flight reports? And it's kind of like CSI helicopters. So yeah, I quite enjoy that. Ticks a load of boxes. Bill W., in your opinion, is flying a helicopter intrinsically more difficult than flying fixed wing? Damn right it is. Yeah. um, yeah. Well, thing is, everything is challenging in different ways, and going through when you start flying on. So I start my first flying course on the Firefly, the little puddle jumper, little yellow, um, fantastic aircraft. You do the instrument flight phase, flying in clouds, and it was ridiculously easy. If you just pointed at the ground, you want to go faster, you put a bit of throttle on, and it's slower, take it off. Do an instrument flight in a helicopter. Oh my god! I tell you what, it is damn hard work manually flying a helicopter, and then bring the speed back, and everything changes. It's really hard work. So I would say yes, because helicopters are just constantly trying to kill you, whereas fixed wings aren't. And that's why helicopters are more difficult, I think. Chelsea, hi, Chelsea. Is it possible to rejoin the RAF now if you wanted to? I don't know. I think so. That there is reserves. So when I lost my job last year, I did look into it, and there's a few different jobs that I possibly could have done if they wanted me to. You never know whether your name is mud, but I think I left on uh, good terms. But you're getting a bit old now. I mean, I'm 47 now, so I'm not sure I passed the RAF fitness test anymore. Carry a few extra stones. Um, yeah, and hi, Mike. He says, was there ever a Puma display team? Yes, there was. Thing with display teams is it has to be funding for it, and as ever with the military, it's same as civilian world. That funding's tight, and they tend to prioritise new aircraft. And the RF is about sort of fast, shiny jets zooming around the sky. So in terms of funding, it would be there was always the Chinook display team, which is brilliant. They are absolutely amazing, and students of mine have done that job, and I take my hat to them. It is amazing. It's a really superb display. Um, I think it was Riat a few years ago. The Chinook actually, I'm sure it was Riat. The Chinook won the best display. So yeah, that's super. There was a Puma display team, and I know the guy. I think the last guy who did it. So because it was an older aircraft, there wasn't really funding for that sort of thing anymore. And I've got a very rude analogy about helicopter display flying that if I remember, I'll tell you at the end. But the guy who flew the Puma display, he landed once after the display, and there's a brilliant picture of the Puma going up, literally vertically up 90 degrees, straight up in the air. And after he landed, and this may be why they stopped doing the Puma display, there were witness marks on the tail boom from the tail rotor. Now, if you go to a Puma now with a tail, and you try and push that tail onto the tail boom, you physically cannot get anywhere near it. I mean, I don't know how far away it is, but it's maybe sort of a foot or something like this, maybe slightly more, maybe 18 inches. But the fact that that tail rotor struck the tail boom just shows that there was a whole load of all sorts of stuff was flexing and hitting it, so it wasn't a good thing. So hi, James Roberts, yeah, somebody who knows my son Henry. Um, and hi, Alan. When did you know you wanted to be a pilot? Yeah, I was obviously really young, and I think I said the story about the guy with the one eye, but and I think from there I started making models, um, and I remember distinctly. I mean, maybe this was the kind of key point when I decided that I was going to be a pilot, but I was um, we never had much money growing up, and I had to go out and work, or work on farms and stuff, and holidays, and as a school child to get money. So I used to go potato picking, pea picking, strawberry picking, and I remember one day I was pea picking, and you got a big box, and I filled it full of peas, and you got 50 pea per box. So it was miserable, and it was raining, and it was freezing cold. It was the middle of summer. I was tipping it down, and I literally was sitting in a muddy field with a load of other people, didn't know any of them, and I was picking these peas, and I've never been as miserable all my life. And there's this loud roar, and there were two tornadoes flew straight over top of me. I remember looking up, and the navigator kind of looked down with just disdain and disgust at me sitting in the mud and all the other guys. And I looked up at him, and I thought, I'm not going to, I'm not going to end up doing this for the rest of my life. And years later, I used to fly the Griffins, the Bell 412s as an instructor. We used to go to East Anglia, Norfolk, and there's huge farming going on there. And whenever we flew around, we'd all be, four helicopters thundering around the skies, and we'd fly over all these people picking peas and picking strawberries, and I'd always look down at them and wave and think, yeah, that was you not so long back. So anyway, hi John. Do you think Helo IFR is an important skill for civilian pilots doing land-based charters? Yeah, it is because uh, there's been a lot of accidents in the civilian world from people trying to press on in bad weather, but visually trying to press on as well. So if you look at the Kobe Bryant crash as well, that was in America last year. There's kind of implications there where he. I mean, I won't go into too many details here, but basically, being good at flying instrument flight rules for anybody who's not aware, that's kind of flying in cloud. You know what the airliners do when they take off and land. It gives you the confidence as well and the ability that if the weather changes and deteriorates, you can safely climb above it and get away. So yeah, I really do think it's important. Harry, what would you say is your most famous story that you tell anyone? Well, okay. This is my Prince William story. So he was a student when I went through offshore, when I was instructor, sorry. And he's a lovely bloke, really, really nice guy, really good pilot. I didn't fly with him personally. I was his tertiary instructor. So basically, I was about 100th down the line. So, the royal family, if the royal family get wiped out, there's some, sort of earl somewhere, 300th to the throne who might take over. I was that guy with Prince William. So if there'd been a thermonuclear strike on Shawbury and I was, out at Tesco's, there's a chance that I might have flown with him. Anyway, I've flown a formation once with him, but we were, I was the second in command of the 60 squadron at the time, which is the training squadron. And I stood up in the morning brief, and I used to ask for students to help me with jobs. And we had an injured army serviceman visiting the base, and I stood up, and I was the only person who knew that he was coming. And I said, "Look, guys, can I have a student who's free to fly the simulator? It's just for an injured serviceman and his family." And Prince William straight away put his hand up and said, "Yeah, I'll do it." I went, "Wow, okay, that's cool." And I went to, William went to the simulator and he sat in it, and I went and met the guy who's a former sniper, actually, been blinded. He had like 25 children with him, and he didn't know he was going to meet Prince William. So I was really excited about doing that. And we went in the simulator, and I said, "Oh, this is your pilot who's going to show you how to fly the helicopter." And obviously he couldn't see, but his reaction of his children, he just went absolutely crazy. And Prince William was fantastic, and he was very friendly and talking to them all really, as is his way. But the amazing thing was this. William said to this guy, and I hadn't told Prince William this guy's name, and he said to him, "I know you, don't I? I know you. We've met." And this injured sniper said, "Yeah, we have. It was in Germany." And Prince William straight away went, 1997, wasn't it? 1998? Larbrook or Senlager, something like, Senlager. So, and the guy said, "Yeah." And he got his unit right as well. And I was amazed. And I thought, what an incredible bloke. I mean, you think how many people the guy's met, and he remembered that guy, and it made it for him. So anyway, so that's my most famous story. Did you manage to keep your flight helmet when you left? Yeah, I've got it next door. It was scrapped. I wore it every single flight I did in the military. So 3,200 hours. So it's really, really special to me, and it's really stinky. So I don't think anybody else would want it. It cost me a bottle of Bombay Sapphire gin as well for it to be scrapped. So which is what most aircrew do, but they do get thrown away. So, hi Josh, how are you? Bill W. Are the Army Air Corps, Army military still training helicopter years into service from non-flying arms? Yeah, the Army do, and they're really good at that. So a lot of the Army pilots, they don't join the Army Air Corps, so they'll go and be a soldier. They might go and be a paratrooper. And in fact, in the Shetlands, when I was flying up there, I shared a house with a former paratrooper. He was a warrant officer in the paras, and then he joined the Army Air Corps and did that for a few years, and then left. Wonderful bloke. So it's a really good scheme. The military does as well. There are plenty of, for example, ex-engineers, ex-suppliers, all sorts of people who join the Air Force and just change to being a pilot. So it is possible, and for anyone who's thinking about the military, I'd say go and do it. And when you're in, you've got more chance of getting in as a pilot if that's what you want. The most boring thing you've ever done in the RAF. Well, here you go. Here you go. So this is day one of officer training. So I went to RF Cranwell, and yeah, so day one you went, you got all your kit, you get bags of stuff, and they gave me these what's called JSPs, they're joint service publications, and there was a row of documents, like probably about a meter long, and then about half a meter long was the amendments that you had to do. And basically, if you've ever done amendments, it involves finding a tiny thin piece of paper, taking it out, putting another one in, and then writing somewhere to say you've done it. It took me days to do it. So there you go. So there's lots of boring things you do in the military as well. Hi Josh, my dream of leave school is to become a pilot in the RAF. What would be your advice? I'm currently an air cadet. Yeah, you're doing the right thing, Josh. That's exactly what I did. So what I would say is air cadets, Duke of Edinburgh's award, anything that shows that you want to go and do it. And the only real advice I've got for being a pilot is you've got to want to do it more than anybody else in this world. And if you do, you'll make it happen. You don't have to be the cleverest person in the world, or or the most talented person in the world. You just have to want it more than anybody else. But yeah, you're doing the right thing. So air cadets, if you can get a flying scholarship, great, and make the most of every opportunity. So when I went for my selection to be a pilot, there were probably we all met up in this. It was an officers' mess the night before. You were going through all the tests, the exams, you do leadership exercises, and I never thought that anybody from my background would be accepted into the RF. I mean, obviously I hoodwinked them. Yeah, so this first night we were all together. There were probably 200 of us in this officers' mess, and we're all in our suits and getting to know each other. Quite nervous about the next day, your computer tests and all your leadership exams. And I remember there was this old guy in a suit who was walking around all the groups of people, and he was just asking. He said he was a duty officer, and he was asking us how, whether we had any questions about what was going to happen the next day, and everyone was ignoring it. And I felt quite sorry for this guy, as you do, because he's pretty much been given the cold shoulder. And I remember he went over to browse through some magazines, and I went to see him, and we had a beer together, and we were just chatting about life in general. And he was a really nice old guy, and he'd been a pilot himself in the RF, and we chatted about that. He asked me about himself, and the very next day I did my the exams you do, the computer exams, and then I went for my interview, and that was the big thing, was the interview. And there was a board of people in there, and there was the president of the board, who's the most important there. Yeah, you probably guessed it. It was the same guy, and I sat down in front of him and the rest, and he said, "Yeah," he said, "I spoke to you yesterday. I've asked you all the questions I want to. I'm quite happy. Does anyone else have any questions?" And he asked me a few random questions. So and it went. Obviously, I got I was lucky enough to get offered a position, and the lesson I'd pass on to you for that, if you do want to be a pilot, is don't miss any opportunity to talk to people and to sell yourself. And yeah. So there you go. Hi, John. What's the biggest wow factor that you've seen looking down scenery wise? Wow. That's a good one. Maybe. I mean, I said the offshore world, looking down at from 500 foot at a family of humpback whales was just amazing, and they're just like a house. They're huge. But probably the biggest, maybe just to flip your question slightly, uh, maybe the worst thing I've seen is the Garden of Eden in Iraq, which was just the most disappointing. Of the Euphrates and the Tigris where they meet. It was just dust and mess. That was you'd have thought from the biblical Garden of Eden, but obviously things have changed a bit since then. And hi Eric, would you get more girls if you said you were a fighter pilot or a helo pilot? Yeah, Top Gun seems to have tipped it in favour of fighters. I don't know about that. There's plenty of girls who fly both, so yeah, I have no idea. I'm a bit old for that sort of thing anyway nowadays. What I'd say about that maybe is uh, when I was an instructor, we used to go to the streaming boards, which was rolled where they'd select where people went to fly from elementary flying training. So they would be sent to fly helicopters or multi-engines or jets. And pretty interesting, but it was about the same time as Afghanistan was really kind of busy. And I've got to say, I was really surprised that probably half maybe wanted to be helicopter pilots, maybe a little bit less, but I would have thought everybody wants to fly jets, but it was substantially more than I thought. Maybe 40% wanted helicopters, and 50% jets and 10% multi-engines. So uh, no, I've not got to a reunion yet. There's a very good one for the Puma force, but I live a long way away from where it happens, and I'm a bit of a lightweight when it comes to drinking, so I know I'd probably end up making a fool of myself. How low, hi Bill, how low would flying around in low flying areas in Wales and Herefordshire? Well, um, when you're flying a military helicopter, you can fly down 50 foot off the ground. The Things like the Griffin, you can only fly to 100 feet because it was civilian owned, military registered. But yeah, so 50 foot was the lowest we could fly. But what we could do is we could go down to 10 feet, doing what's called concealed approach and departure. Now you couldn't pull the wings off it and fly 150 knots and 10 feet, but it was still a lot of fun. But yeah, you could just reduce the speed as you went down. So say I don't know 50 knots at 50 feet, and then 40 knots at 40 feet, etc. So what I say, I did have a go in a Hawk once, the jet, and it was I think we did 250 feet, 420 knots, and it felt I've got to say 50 foot and 140 knots in a helicopter was just as much fun, if not more fun. The reason is 50 foot, you are right in the weeds, you're pulling up over trees and wires and houses, and you're constantly moving the aircraft around and up and down. It's hard work and it's brilliant fun. Whereas 250 foot was a lot more kind of stable and it was quick, but it wasn't. I don't think it was just quite as exciting. John, yeah, it's funny when you don't realise who you're talking to. A friend of the funny story, retired two-star working on fixing a Gulfstream jet. Some officers nowadays a two-star. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of that goes on. You have to be very careful who you meet. And yeah, when I went for my simulator assessment, so I went into the offshore world. I went for my interview, and then they put you in the flight simulator. And in the certain the military, the simulator instructors, they're just regular civilian and guys who they're normally kind of retired guys. Maybe they've had a medical issue, and they're all lovely people, very good. But they're not like the head of training. What I didn't realise, the civilian world, the guy, lovely bloke, very relaxed, very chilled out. He got in the simulator with me when I did my exam. It's just me and him. We had a lovely laugh and a joke, and I just assumed he was, just a full-time simulator instructor. And like, oh no, he was literally head of training for the whole company. So, so I was lucky. I pulled that one out of the bag as well. So you're quite right, John. You have to be very careful. Aviation is a really small world as well. So you have to be very careful what you do or say as well. So yeah, there you go. And yeah, thanks for the advice. One last question: did you have an aircraft type you wanted to go to? Yeah, I think when I joined, I probably wanted to fly Jaguar. I think I always fancied photo reconnaissance or something. And then when I started flying helicopters, um, yeah, I said that I fancied the Chinook, but they were all really good fun. I've flown all of them there, and they were just nice pilots aircraft. What was easier, Puma or Merlin? Probably the Puma really, because it was just such a simple aircraft. It was the Merlin was less tiring to fly because say you're doing an IFR transit. So we, said in the video, we flew all the way across Europe in the Puma and the Merlin. The Puma, you were hands on the whole time, and getting bounced around in turbulence and everything. The Merlin, you just plug in the autopilot and go for it. So it was a bit easier in that respect. Bill W. Which, if any, ancient helicopter would you like to have a go in? Scout, Whirlwind, Wessex, Belvedere. Well, I've flown the Wessex many times. It's a brilliant old aircraft. One of the good things about it is it's got a tail rotor. Tail rotor. It's got a tail wheel. So in terms of getting into fields quickly, one downside of the Puma was it didn't have a tail wheel, so you have to be very careful how you landed because you could dink the tail rotor. But with the Wessex, you had a tail wheel, and you could come into fields, really quickly, and just basically the tail wheel would hit the ground first, and it wouldn't be the tail rotor, which is normally fairly terminal. So yeah, Wessex is a great aircraft. I think maybe the one I'd like to fly is the MD 500, which is the I think that's the one that Magnum used to fly. For any of you pretty younger people watching, you probably don't remember that. But Magnum was about a private investigator in the 80s, and he had I'm sure it was a bright red old helicopter. But I think the same one was used in Vietnam for Vietnam War in the 60s for reconnaissance and things. So it's quite really really smart helicopter. But yeah, I've scratched my helicopter itch. The the most so yeah, so I had about an hour's flight in a Hawk. I've flown multi engines, mainly simulator. I've flown all sorts of helicopters, lots of light aircraft, aerobatic stuff. Um, but the best thing I've flown and the most enjoyable flying, hands down, was gliding. Um, so yeah, gliding to me was just brilliant fun. For anyone who wants to take up flying, I would start with gliding. It teaches you so much as well. Hi John, any precautionary forced landings? Touch wood, no, no, no. I've had an engine flame out of the ground. Oh yes, no, I've had a precautionary landing. In fact, sorry, I've had quite a few. Mainly bird strikes. So if you're flying at low level and you hit a bird, you put it into a field. That's happened lots of times. Chips as well. So helicopters have chip detectors, and they tell you if the gearbox is about to go pop, which is normally pretty terminal. So I had a few chips on the Merlin where we put it into fields. So never a forced landing, thank God. Touching wood. Chelsea, did you ever get to air shows? Yes. What's your favourite aircraft to watch? Yeah, I love air shows. Love taking the kids to them. Um, I saw. I don't. I'm probably a bit of a Jonah at air shows because I've seen a Mustang and unfortunately have a heavy landing which pretty much crashed it, and a World War II Mustang. I very nearly saw a Typhoon crash at Riyadh, at Fairford. He did a loop. I think it's on the internet somewhere, but he basically overcooks it. And you see him pulling out, and I don't know what he missed the ground by, but I remember we were in a hospitality tent in Northrop Grumman, and people were just chatting away as they do. They're all doing business, and I pretty much dropped my drink because I don't think anybody else noticed this guy doing his loop, and he almost hit the ground. I mean, I think it was brown trouser time. So, what's your favourite aircraft to watch? This is a really weird one, but do you know, nobody would ever guess this, but the best aircraft I've seen at an air show was a Fiesler Storch, which is it's a German World War II light aircraft. There's one at RAF Cosford, and it basically can fly just so incredibly slowly. And I took a was it Firefly to RAF Waddington, which is a brilliant air show. And yeah, we were just standing by the aircraft chatting away, and the Fiesler Storch did its display, and there was probably about 20 knot wind, and this thing was hovering. It was just incredible. You see an aircraft like that is just hovering in midair effectively. It's not right. I mean, you've probably seen there's programs about Alaska on Discovery, and they show these old aircraft with the huge balloon tires where they could land in the middle of a riverbed, and they take off in 20 feet. It's that sort of thing, and it was just something that was so unusual to see a fixed wing aircraft doing that. I mean, there's lots of helicopters flood around the sky, the jets zoom around the sky, and the multis pile through with lots of noise, but it was just something really different. So yeah, I'd say the Fiesler Storch. No, not Airwolf, not Airwolf, I'm afraid. John Webster. Oh yeah, thanks, John Ellis about the OH6. Yeah, some brilliant books on Vietnam. We pretty much mandatory reading when I went through flying training was Chicken Hawk, which is just an amazing book. Low Level Hell is the one I'd recommend. I think that's about the OH6 by a chap called Hugh Mills Jr. It's just amazing. Honestly, one of the best books I've ever read. John Webster, how was the landing on the ramp at SBTA, known as the Dust Bowl? I'm not sure I've landed there. We did used to do slope and ground landings at. Oh yes, Salisbury Plain. Yeah, I've flown there, but I don't remember landing on the Dust Bowl. To be honest, I did a Merlin trial there. What I remember about the trial was there's different parts of the range you could fly in. So and the bit of the range right next to us that we couldn't fly in, they were firing artillery. So we were flying one bit, and then we had to get right to the edge of this this range before we kind of run in and we were firing bits of chaff off. I remember seeing also artillery landing, and I don't know how close it was, but it was ridiculous. It felt ridiculously close. And that was at Salisbury Plain, SVTA's Salisbury Plain training area. Yeah, Storch is amazing. No, I've not flown the Army Air Corps Beaver. The uh, the only historic aircraft I've flown is probably the Chipmunk. I got an offer to fly a Harvard when I was at Boscombe Down because they had one, which is, for any history buffs, is the advanced trainer in World War II for RAF and American. Um, and I gave it up. There was an American exchange pilot there, Cobra pilot, and I thought he really wanted to fly the Harvard. And I thought if I keep him sweet, he'll take me flying in an Apache or something like that. And he never did. So anyway, he got to fly the Harvard instead. Yeah, try to Chicken Hawk is outstanding. Honestly, it was mandatory reading. It's brilliant, and it's got the if you haven't read it, it's got the most just stunning ending to any book. If you buy it, don't look at the bloody last page, but read it, and the last page of it will just knock you out to six. It's incredible. Won't spoil it for you know. Callum, is it hard to navigate nap of the Earth at 50 feet when obstacles block your view? Made it hard to see. Yeah, it's really difficult. So if you go on Microsoft Flight Sim, the latest one, 2020. I haven't got it, but I've seen it. It's got photorealistic scenery, and you can look down, and it's a bit like flying up at altitude, and stuff. Roads stick out, lights stick out. But when you're at 50 feet, I promise you, the world is trees, hills, houses, small wires, large wires, and that is it. And even small hills and stuff, they just block your view. It's so difficult to see where you're going. Um, when I started flying, we'd only just got GPS, which shows how old I am. But when you go through training, you're not allowed to. Certainly, you weren't allowed to use it. It was clock map ground. So you start your clock. You pick up your map at whatever 2 minutes to go to your turning point, and then you look for the features that should be on your map that are on the ground. It does work because obviously GPS does lie. I remember landing on an RF Benson once, the Merlin, which was fantastic, outstanding GPS. We landed on, and it told me I was 5 miles away from RF Benson, and I literally was next to the hangars. And what used to happen was the GPS memory buffers would fill up, and it would all get it would all kind of sort of wander. Yeah, John Ellis, OH-58 stories from Iraq are wild. They are. It's that is an amazing aircraft. Kiowa, I think it is. I used to teach on a helicopter tactics course, and I think we had a picture of one that actually got back to base in Iraq, somewhere in Baghdad, and it was riddled with bullets. I mean, there must have been hundreds of holes in this thing. And the 58 is a small aircraft. I have no idea how that the crew survived and the aircraft survived as well. On the Merlin, we had one bullet hole through a rotor blade when I was out there. It wasn't me flying it, but it was fine. The Merlin had a vibration control system, which meant that it actually damped out the vibration, and the crew only noticed. I think it was when you land on, you hand the aircraft to the engineers. They do a quick turnaround. One of the engineers just looked up and noticed a hole in the end of the rotor blade, 7.62 millimeter wide. So it's a bit sporty. I've also has joint forces helicopter training made service relations better. I think so. And as I said, I went through tri-service, elementary and helicopter flying training most of the way. When I was an instructor, we had Army crewmen on our course that we taught, and also Navy search and rescue pilots came through 60 Squadron. All brilliant guys. And just, it's like a lot of things, and familiarity is the biggest problem where, apocryphal stories kind of take over, and, the RAF does that, the Army does this, the Navy does this. And actually, the more people train together and then fought together afterwards, we've all got, now if you go on Facebook, everybody's friends with each other, and there's always people you don't get on with. There's probably people who say that don't particularly like me, but that is it's just what it is. Say mostly people get on really really well now. It's definitely made these service relations a lot better, I think. What I would say for things like soldiers, obviously they don't train with us quite as much, and it seemed to be whenever I met somebody from the army who was a soldier, I'd always drop them in a field they didn't want to be in Iraq or Bosnia. So I normally have to explain, particularly in Northern Ireland, it was so difficult to navigate. Your GPS was rubbish, and obviously there was loads of fields, and it could be something as simple as you might drop them 50 meters from where they wanted to be, but that 50 meters was the other side of a muddy stream. And when I first turned up at my offshore base in the Shetlands in 2013, the chief pilot was an ex-army helicopter pilot, and he took a point of telling me that I dropped him to the side of a muddy field once. It probably wasn't me, but it was probably somebody I knew. But he said I got absolutely bloody soaked and muddy, and then spent a week being cold and wet because of you. So little things like that actually get broken down the more you kind of train together and spend together. So yeah, good point. When you look at sorry.
Oh no, yeah, no, carry on. I was just going to let you finish up that sentence there, Simon.
Yeah, that's probably it. I think that's the last question. I think.
Yeah, so I've got one question to wrap up this brilliant Q&A. Have you got any plans for a book?
No, no, not at all.
No.
No, I know a lot of people do it. No, one day, one day maybe, but no, it's yeah,
It's a lot of work.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. No, but I've really enjoyed talking to everybody anyway, and boring everybody to tears. So thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to bore not just my own family, but some random strangers as well.
Well, what a brilliant Q&A that was, and thank you for everyone who joined and putting some great questions. And yeah, Simon, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Brilliant. Cheers, Mike.
Cheers.